Hi everyone, it's Tarrant.
And Stella from the Dice Tower. Thanks for joining us.
Today we'll be teaching you how to play Terrorscape, game designed by Jeffrey CCH and published by IceMakes. We are using a prototype copy here of the game, and so the rules and components may not be final.
Let's get to it.
This dice tower and screen separates the two sides playing in this game. On one side, 3 survivors run around the mansion, trying to find the keys they need to survive, or repair the radio to trigger a rescue. While on the other side, the killer roams around, listening for noise, and trying to hunt down and kill one of the survivors. It's a quick-moving game of hidden movement cat and mouse to see whether or not all survivors can get out alive. To set up, assemble the 3-dimensional dice tower screen piece and use the guide slots to put it between the 2 pieces of the main board. At the front, place these curved pieces and the killer's level and strength board, and at the rear, place each side's component tray. This full assembly makes up the main board, and because of its size, we're often going to show you from this point forward without the screen in the middle. The survivors will use the side of the board with space for the draw decks. Choose 3 survivors to play. You will always have 3 survivors in the game, irrespective of the number of survivor players. A player may play multiple survivors if necessary. Set up each survivor with its information card and inventory card. Attach each mini to its matching coloured base ring, and place them in the starting room, whichever is adjacent to the main exit. Set up your decks of item cards. For the brown discovery cards, simply shuffle them and place them here. And for the blue search cards, take 1 key card, shuffle the rest, place that set aside key on the bottom and then place them here. Backpack cards have a specific use. They're placed here and they aren't shuffled. And if your survivor has a starting item, it will come from that backpack deck. Place the repair tokens here, the defense dice here, and your remaining game tokens in the tray. The killer chooses a character, and the butcher is recommended for your first game, as it's the simplest to play. Find the deck of cards depicting that character on the back, leaving any others in the box. And make sure the deck contains exactly these cards at the bottom of your board. Cards not described there are often unlocked during the game, and these cards should be placed on this space. You begin at level 1, and this number is your starting strength, and you'll place these markers to indicate it. You may gain strength through the game, and this track is not limited. Place the survivors' information cards here. This tells you which survivors are in the game and what their special abilities are. And place those same heroes' health markers on top of the screen, unwounded side up. Then take tokens representing the repair track, each of the survivors, and the numbers 1, 2, and 3. These serve no specific function in the game, but they can help you to make deductions on the board for what you can't see across the screen. Take your mini and place it in its starting space, adjacent to the hidden exit. The survivor team does likewise with the second copy of your mini. All of your remaining components are likewise placed in your tray. The survivors will always be the first player. You're now ready to play. Terrorscape is played in turns. First, the survivors will take a collective turn, in which each survivor will take 1 action, and then the killer will take a turn. This continues back and forward until one side meets a win condition. The survivors have 2 different ways to win. First, they may go to the room containing the radio and collectively take a total of 5 actions to move all of these repair tokens onto the radio's room. As soon as this is done, it sends out a rescue signal. The survivors must survive 5 more turns, advancing this marker 1 step at the start of each turn. If it has reached the end of the track, then the survivors win. The alternative is to find 5 keys, usually by going to key rooms and searching through the key deck, which does contain 5 keys. After finding all the keys, the survivors must begin their turn in the room with the main exit or in the room with the hidden exit, as long as they are carrying the secret map. The killer wins by killing any one survivor, meaning they must find them, attack them, and deal them a total of 2 damage. For the survivors, Terrorscape is a game of hidden movement and actions. The killer player will not know where the survivors are moving or what actions they're taking. But their actions will be leaving clues, often in the form of noise. This will give the killer the necessary means to try to hunt down the players and form the attacks. The killer, on the other hand, has almost no secrecy and instead uses blockades and fear to turn the tables. The killer will also make the most of a deck of cards and will level up through various different levels of difficulty as the game goes on. I'll now take you through the survivor's turn. Unless otherwise stated, you do not have to reveal any information about your turn to the killer player. As a setup step to the turn, remove any noise markers which were on the board from the previous turn. And check the 2 win conditions, the rescue and being at an exit with the keys. This start of turn phase is the only time you can win on these conditions. Now the survivors may take actions. Each survivor may take a single main action. Each may take any number of extra actions, indicated by the yellow text. And each may trade any number of items with another survivor if in the same location. Among all 3 survivors, any of these main actions, extra actions and trades can happen in any order. After all of that, one survivor may draw 2 cards from the discovery deck and choose to keep one, discarding the other. And then to end your turn, if there was any noise generated by your actions, you now tell the killer the location of every noise. This means the killer gets a snapshot of all the locations where noisy actions took place on the turn, but no information about the order in which you took them. There are 6 different main actions available to the survivors. You may move 1 or 2 spaces, across dotted lines or through white rectangular doors. If you're in a room whose door has a block token, then you can spend your action to remove that block token. You must immediately reveal this action to the killer. In this case, you would say, I've removed the block between R3 and B5. This both gives the killer information and allows the killer to remove the same block token from their side of the board. If your character has a replace action available, indicated by the blue text, then this action can be done as your main action. Think of it as replacing your main action. There are various examples in the game. Here, for example, Sophia Scott can travel through secret passages, which connect any 2 rooms on the board which share a letter. If you're in a room containing the key icon and the killer is not in the room with you, remember you'll always know where the killer has been moved, then you may search that room, drawing the top card from the key deck and revealing it. If it shows this icon here, metal clanging, then you've made noise while searching. Place a noise token in the room, ready to reveal to the killer at the end of your turn. If the item you found was a key, then immediately add it to the key stand on the top of the screen. This reveals it to the killer. If it's anything else, add it to an inventory slot on your player board. You may hold 3 items per survivor, and if you draw above, discard the one of your choice. You still generate noise for finding an item, even if you choose to discard it. And note that these rules hold for the discover step of your turn as well. When you reveal the 2 cards, if either shows metal clanging, then you must generate the noise for the survivor who discovered. Note as well that there are 2 keys in this deck in addition to the 5 in the search deck. Other than keys, items come in 3 types: those with replace actions, those with extra actions, and those with neither. These ones are used out of turn when the killer attacks you. All items are single use and are discarded after use unless they have this infinity icon in the bottom left corner. If you're in the room with the gear and the killer is not in that room with you, then you can start repairing the radio, moving one of these gear symbols onto this space. This action generates a noise. Once you've completed the final repair step, this immediately sends out the rescue beacon, which you'll place on top of the screen for the killer to see. Until that time, the killer can only infer how many times you might have repaired the radio. The last option is to calm down and remove all of that survivor's fear. Various actions taken by the killer will give you fear tokens, and once you have 2, every subsequent step of fear will put a noise on the board in your location. With this action, simply remove all of the fear tokens of the survivor taking the action. And that covers everything the survivors need to know to take a turn. If you're concerned about revealing information to the killer that you're not supposed to, simply remember this. While you're taking the actions, the only things you need to reveal are if you're removing a block token, or if you're placing something up on the dividing screen for the killer to see. Then, only once you've finished all your actions, do you reveal where all of the noise tokens were placed. Now we'll talk about the killer's turn. At the start of your turn, you'll know where you and the block tokens are and where any noise that was made last turn is located. Otherwise, your board is blank. To begin your turn, draw 2 cards from your deck to your hand, which you can keep face up in front of you. You have a maximum hand limit of 5, and if you draw above 5, you must discard the most recently drawn card. Secondly, you may play any number of lightning bolt cards from your hand, discarding them to resolve the printed effect. And I'll explain what these different effects are shortly. Then you take actions, and you have 2 options. Either to play a single one of these up arrow cards, resolving its printed effect, or you may take 2 minor actions on the board, which are to move your mini or search for survivors. Then, if you did not attack any of the survivors on this turn, you may play one of the hourglass cards from your hand. This will be an effect which assists you for future rounds, and you draw 1 more card. You do not get to play an hourglass or draw an extra card if you attacked this turn. Now the killer's actions, and unlike the survivors, you should assume, unless otherwise stated, that you are describing these actions in full to your opponents. To move 1 space like the survivors through a door or across a dotted line. The survivor players should replicate this movement on their board. The only difference between your movements and the survivors is that you can move through a blockage, but you destroy it in the process. When an action allows you to block, that lets you block off doors from the location you're currently standing. Again, the survivors should replicate this on their board. A card might allow you to generate fear in a certain location. Here, for example, it's within 1 range, which would be any survivor in your current room or a room that you can reach with 1 movement. The survivors now put a fear token onto each survivor in that range. Or, if applicable, place a noise token, whose location is immediately revealed to both players. The sense action lets the killer feel whether the survivors are in a certain location or not. In this case, it's sensing in a zone, which are the 3 coloured areas: red zone, blue zone, and green zone. If playing this card now, the killer player would ask the survivors, are there any survivors in the blue zone? For each individual survivor, you'd answer yes or no, but not give any further information. One of the few actions a killer can take without revealing everything is stealth. Each point of stealth allows the killer to move 1 space without telling the survivors where. When you do this, place the stealth marker around your mini to remind you that you're in stealth mode, while on the survivor side of the board, the mini is moved to the stealth circle. The survivors know you've gone stealthy but don't know where you are. The final and perhaps most critical action is search. The survivors are constantly hiding and the killer can walk right on by without noticing them. But if the killer takes a search action, they take a good look around their current room and find any survivors who are there. After a successful search, the survivors must tell the killer which survivors are present in that room. The survivor players then choose one of the survivors for the killer to attack first. The survivor may then choose a single item that they're carrying for defense. Here, for example, discarding the limestone powder for 2 defense, or using the permanent longsword for 3 defense. Check the killer's strength. This will be what's showing on the strength track, plus any bonus strength from cards that were played this turn. In this case, it's 7 strength. Take 4 defense dice and then remove 1 for each fear that survivor currently has. Drop them in the dice tower. Add any item bonuses to the result, so here it's a defense of 6, and compare it against the strength. If the defense is lower than the killer's strength, then the survivor is hit and you'll flip its token over to the wounded side. If it was already wounded, then the survivor is dead and the killer wins. If not, and if there are any survivors in the room who are yet to be attacked this turn, then choose another survivor and repeat the process. If the survivor rolls equal or higher than the defender's strength, then the attack is successfully defended. The killer now draws 4 cards into hand from its deck. The search and attack action is finished once either one player successfully defends or once all players have been hit. The survivors then scatter, each of them getting a free move 1 action. If the killer ever needs to draw a card but its draw deck is empty, then shuffle the current discard pile and then increase the level of the killer 1 step. This is marked on the killer's level board and may come with some additional bonuses. This can include unlocking some new and stronger cards which go straight into your hand, even at the expense of discarding one already there. The only exception to the normal rule where your newest gained card is the one discarded. The base game comes with 3 different killers. The Butcher, who is strong and relatively straightforward. The Spectre, who is very powerful with stealth and fear. And the Murderer, who is also effective with stealth as well as pinpointing the location of survivors. Information on the strengths and playstyles of the different killers can be found in the survival guide. If the survivors can find 5 keys and begin their turn at an exit, or repair the radio and wait 5 turns for rescue, then they win the game. If even a single survivor is killed, then the spoils go to the killer. And that's how to play Terrorscape.
Check out the project page of Terrorscape. We'll put the link in the description below so you can check it out. If you find this video useful, please help us by hitting that like button and subscribe to the Dice Tower if you haven't already done so.
And if you have any questions, comments or feedback, please leave that in the comments section below.
Thanks for watching. See you next time.